Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. Armagh 23 points, Tyrone 22 points. An incredible finish, incredible drama in Clonus as Armagh come out as the winners right at the death. Rory Grugan with the final kick, putting it over the bar from the free, and Armagh are into a third successive Ulster Senior Football Championship final. What a game, what drama, two huge rivals, both going toe-to-toe, some phenomenal football from both teams at different stages. Darren McCurry, outstanding for Tyrone. Oisin Connaughty at the other end, brilliant from Armagh, incredible performance from him. But it goes down to the wire. And Armagh, who led in this game for 56 minutes, looked like they were going to cruise to victory at different stages and were superb, playing some brilliant football, defensively absolutely solid. All of a sudden, they just collapsed. And it just felt like all of a sudden Armagh got really tired and they started losing the ball. Passes started going astray. Tyrone started growing in confidence. And before you knew it, you were thinking Tyrone are going to win this game. And it felt, Tyrone were never that far away from Armagh. And there was never really much between the teams. But there was a stage in the second half where Armagh were 5 or 6 up. And you just felt like Armagh were going to kick on and win the game comfortably. But they never really took advantage of that period. They never put Tyrone to the sword when they had the chance. And Tyrone took over then. And all of a sudden you were thinking, right, Tyrone are going to win this game. But then the reversal happens. And in fairness to Armagh, the difference now between Armagh this year and last year is that this Armagh team now knows how to get over the line. They know how to win these games. They didn't panic. They didn't panic. Armagh of last year and maybe the year before, and I mean last year, I mean pre sort of All-Ireland, sort of pre-Ulster final, because it was probably after the Ulster final that they went on to win the All-Ireland, obviously. But you're looking at, in the Ulster Championship last year, or even the year before that, or even the season before that, Armagh would have panicked, I think. They would have panicked. The inexperience would have been there. And we saw it. Look, we saw it against Derry in the Ulster final. We saw it at times last year against Donegal. But in this game, they didn't. And the reason why they didn't is because they've now done it. They've been there and done it. They did it in the All-Ireland final. And they kept their composure right at the end. They weren't rushing that final chance to level the game from Stephen Campbell before Noel Morgan had an absolute howler. And Armagh came back. They took their opportunities right at the death to get themselves back into the game. Jarlath O'Byrne's obviously getting a big point as well. And quite incredible to think, really, that, Tyrone had a 2-point lead with about 4 minutes to go. And let's not forget, no extra time. The clock, there's no time wasting any of that crack, obviously, with the hooter. And Tyrone blew it in the end. And having been behind for so long and then coming back to being in a brilliant position, that would have absolutely killed Tyrone, in my opinion. You saw the supporters even as well before Rory Grugan had even kicked the ball. You seen the fans behind the goal. Like, they were baiting out that ground as quickly as anything. So, huge disappointment in the end for Tyrone. Look, both teams playing football at the absolute highest standards. Both teams, I think, that will go far in the All-Ireland series. We could see these two play each other again in an All-Ireland semi-final, possibly even a final. Who knows? Like, two very, very good teams. But fair play to Armagh in the end, who I think overall were the better side. Look, I don't think there's much between these two in terms of attack. I don't think there's much between in terms of attack and quality. But I think defensively is the big difference there. And I think Armagh defensively were absolutely superb, in my opinion. Paddy Burns, what a performance on Dara Canavan, limiting Dara Canavan to 4 points, which, look, is a big margin. 4 points sounds like a lot, but I think 3 of those points came in the final 10-15 minutes. So I thought Paddy Burns was absolutely outstanding there. And I thought Armagh overall were brilliant defensively, whether it been Barry McCambridge, Greg McCabe, I thought a very good game as well. Callum O'Neill deserves a massive shout out as well with 3 points. He was absolutely outstanding. And Armagh just had that edge in the end. And look, maybe with the ground being 3/4 Armagh fans, maybe even, the margin was probably even more than that. It looked like a home game for Armagh. I would question, why do Tyrone fans not really seem to support the county? I do remember 20 years ago, Tyrone fans would turn up in large numbers for games. So I don't know. I'd be curious to know for any Tyrone fans watching. And it's not even a dig. I just don't know why the supporters don't seem to support their county as much as Armagh do. I know Armagh are All-Ireland champions, but even last year they had huge numbers, before they even went on and won it. But look, maybe that had a bit of a difference. It kind of wheeled Armagh on a little bit. Like when Niall Morgan puts that kick out straight, and Armagh win the ball. It's a free hit then. Worst comes to worst. You make sure it's not you put the ball dead essentially at the bare minimum, and you don't allow Tyrone to have the chance, because as soon as the ball goes out of play, of course the referee has to blow the whistle. But yeah, an incredible game, incredible drama. Fair play to Armagh in the end for getting over the line. Massive win, because they probably haven't had too many big wins like that in Ulster over the last couple of years, Armagh. They have been on the easier side of the draws when it's come to get to the final. So that will hugely stand to them now going into the final, which you'd imagine will be against Donegal in Croke Park as well. So it's going to be very, very interesting. But there we go. God is in the details here. Says Gutton. Morgan was very poor by his standards. Tyrone missed Matty. Experience up front at the end. A few moments. Noel Morgan had one or two kind of bozo moments. And yeah, that kick out at the end was bizarre. It was just, it didn't even get any height on the kick out. And straight down the middle as well. Didn't even get a chance for a Tyrone player to win it. So especially in a moment like that, a player of his experience. I'd imagine hugely disappointing there. A2 says here, what a game. Poor McCurry, 10 points and on the losing side. Armagh showed were their champions though. Darren McCurry was absolutely outstanding. Like some of the points he was kicking off his left, his right. The pace at which he'd be carrying the ball and still hitting the ball while still maintaining that pace, like he was absolutely outstanding. And in my opinion, he has to go down. Tyrone have had some brilliant forwards, but I think Darren McCurry has to be up there in terms of one of the best forwards to have ever played for Tyrone. Now, I'm not saying he's better than Peter Canavan. Of course I'm not. But I think he's, 2 or 3, in my opinion. I think he's absolutely outstanding and absolutely box office. He had a brilliant performance. And that was absolutely outstanding there from Darren McCurry. Probably just as God is in the details was saying there, like Dara Kahneman kicked 4 points. I think 3 of them came in the second half. Probably just needed a bit more from maybe some of the other forwards, and maybe Armagh just had a little bit more kind of variety in their attack. They were able to bring on some big players as well, like Stephen Campbell and Conor Turba. To be fair to Owen McElholm though, who came on for Tyrone, like he made a big difference. And you felt like that was maybe the turning point when he came on. He kicked 2 points and was outstanding. And Peter Hart as well, like that 2-pointer. Goodness me. To step up like that in a moment like that, absolutely world class in my opinion. I know Gaelic football is a sport that's only played majority in Ireland, but that was just unbelievable stuff from Peter Hart. Absolutely outstanding. And yeah, I think apparently wanted it to go to extra time just to get that drama. I think Armagh fans would have been getting PTSD as soon as it went to extra time because, usually it ends up in a penalty shootout for them. But they get over the line and, massive to think they're without Rian O'Neill. You have Stephen Campbell coming off the bench. You have Conor Turba coming off the bench. 3 massive players who, I don't think Stephen Campbell started in the final last year, but Conor Turba and Rian O'Neill did. And to not have them starting and still get over the line, I think is massive credit to Armagh there, who are missing big players as well. Sam says here, ridiculous 3 rugby matches on at the same time as the Armagh v Tyrone today, RT2, TV3 and TG Cahar all at the same time and no Armagh Tyrone game. Yeah, it is a massive shame, thankfully enough I have a GA Plus subscription. And it did kind of freeze a little bit at the start, to be fair, and I was kind of worried this was going to be one of them games we wouldn't really get to see, but thankfully it held up. But yeah, no, I do agree with you. It is a massive shame that the games aren't on RTE or BBC or whatever it may be, but unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Gavin says if it's Dublin, Louth to get through tomorrow, same 4 finals as last year, which would be slightly disappointing. And even some of them finals we had the year previous as well. Dublin Louth was a final in 23. Kerry Clare was a final in 23. Galway Mayo has been a final the last 2 years as well. The year before, I think maybe was a Galway Roscommon. It probably is a bit disappointing. It is a very competitive championship, but probably just the way the draws have been done. have probably allowed it. I mean, Ulster, I would disagree with, because Armagh Tyrone, look, that could have went either way. Donegal have had a difficult route up until now. But the other draws, I think, are done in such a way that it has kind of ended up in the same finals. But A2 says GA are an absolute clown show in relation to maybe Sam's comment there. A2 says PS up the Dubs, did the business today. Can't wait to get hammered by Kilkenny in a Leinster final again. I was watching that game as well, kind of double screening as much as I could. It helped that the games weren't thrown in at the same time, so you could kind of put attention on both. Big win for Dublin, albeit that penalty, it didn't cross the line, but who cares? That's all I'll say. Pete Doherty says here, final won't be in Croke Park if Donegal win tomorrow. It'll be Saturday the 10th in Clonus. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you could be right. But the reports have suggested that the final will be in Croke Park if it's Armagh Donegal. But look, maybe it will be in Clonus. Who knows? I'd love to see the viewing figures for these rugby matches today versus an Ulster semi-final. Armagh Tyrone, a joke. I honestly think Armagh can play better than today, says Patrick. Yeah, absolutely. There definitely is improvement still for Armagh. I think the game was there to be killed, I think, in the second half, and Armagh kind of didn't do so. And it felt like you were sort of trying to keep the ball a little bit too much and slow the game down, and it was maybe going back into kind of... It did remind me a bit of watching Armagh versus Donegal in the Ulster final last year, where Armagh were cruising in that game at one stage, 5 or 6 up, and then they didn't kill the game, and they allowed Donegal to get back into it, and then it went to extra time, and Donegal obviously did the damage on penalties. The difference is today is that you managed to turn it around and come back, and maybe a little bit of fortune with Morgan's kick going astray. I do think that final play as well, it was a free. I don't think there's any debate in that, in my opinion. I don't think anyone can debate that. But yeah, learning curves definitely. But look, ultimately, you get over the line, you get the win. Massive win for Armagh, because it was looking like it was getting away from them, and I haven't been so much in control, and I haven't done so much right. To have lost that game just would have been an absolute killer, and it would have been another sort of, you won the All-Ireland last year, and that's the holy grail, but you want to win in Ulster now. You want to win that Ulster title, and if you hadn't have gotten over the line here, and it had been another 1 point defeat or penalties or whatever it may have been, it just would have been another sorry story. And I think Armagh fans would have just been really frustrated to have lost the game. But there we go. A2 says, and people moan about these new rules. We've already had 2 absolute bangers. Yeah, absolutely. It was, we've had some brilliant games, it must be said. And the new rules have been huge for that. Was Noel Morgan on the pipe before the game. Never seen him so poor and so brain dead. Yeah, look, he made some big mistakes. He made some big errors. There's no doubt about that. He is one of the best keepers in the game. But yeah, I don't know what happened with that with that kick out. And there was a few other moments as well, like loose passes and loose kickouts. And he has had a few of those moments. I remember against Dublin in the league early on in that game, albeit Tyrone hammered Dublin that day, but he made an absolute howler at the start of the game. So that has happened a few times. But look, ultimately, take nothing away from Armagh. They were absolutely brilliant in getting the victory. Man of the match is a very difficult one. I probably would lean towards Oisin Connaughton, who was outstanding with 4 points. I do think Charlie Oak Burns did a brilliant game as well. Paddy Burns, as I said, was very good defensively. I mean, Darren McCurry kicked 10 points for Tyrone, so it's kind of hard not to give it to him, to be fair. He was absolutely brilliant. And the thing I loved about this game as well, it wasn't really stop-start. There wasn't too many frees. A lot of brilliant brilliant points from play. Interesting enough, like with David Goff, he did call the game 4 or 5 times for steps. So, it seems that that's definitely something they're going to clamp a lot more down on, which I think they should do. But I think Cork fans might be a little bit infuriated, thinking why was that not done last week? But yeah, some kind of calls in there. But yeah, big result for Armagh in the end. They march on to the Ulster final. Look, you'd imagine it will be against Donegal, but look, we'll see what happens. Maybe down control, a spanner in the works. Will it be in Croke Park? Will it be in Clonus? Let's wait and see, obviously, what happens. It's going to be a cracking game either way, and it's going to be a brilliant atmosphere, I think, either way, regardless of what happens in terms of what venue it is, and what a match it's going to be. Sam says Tyrone take All-Ireland champs to the war, so Tyrone have to be serious contenders. Yeah, absolutely. I think both of these are serious contenders. And I think whilst Tyrone lost the game in the end, they will take confidence from Darragh Canavan only freshly back from injury. You could see he probably wasn't at the 100% pace of the game. He had 3 or 4 men around him every time he got the ball as well, so it's very hard for him to do anything. You had Owen McElhone come off the bench as well, who's put his hand up to start. Peter Hart's only freshly coming back into the team as well. Matty Donnelly maybe still to come back. So well, actually, I'm not sure if Matty Donnelly does come back into the team. I think he might be out, but like Tyrone have got some very, very good players there, and it is still year 1 for Malachy O'Rourke as well. So it's a disappointing result, but I don't think it's the end of the world, and they'll certainly go into the group stages fancying their chances, and they're certainly a third. There'll be a pot 3 team, and they're definitely a team as a Dublin fan I wouldn't want to get, to be honest with you, because they'll be a very, very difficult team to play against. But yeah, we'll wrap it up there. Big win for Armagh, 23 points to 22 points in the end. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions in the comments down below. And until the next one, we'll speak to you all later.